Hey guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another episode of Askgufish. So if you're wondering why I don't have the camera on this week, those electric scooters are no joke. Basically, my face got into an altercation with the sidewalk and lost hard, and you guys don't want to see that. Or do you? Nah, even I don't want to see that. So let's see how this goes. Let's just jump into your questions. What do you think of the full 2020 Gibson lineup? Full disclosure, I am a Gibson fan. I feel like that's important to say because it gives context to my reaction. But as a Gibson fan, this is a very exciting time for me. Henry's Gibson is no more. Gibson has released its first new lineup under James Curleigh's leadership. It's officially the Curleigh era or Levi's era. You know, we have to come up with a good name for it. Leave your comments down below. But yeah, it's a new day for Gibson. There's a lot of new stuff, but the first thing you'll notice is that they've dropped the model years and they've sorted the models into either the original collection or the modern collection. The original collection is for the players with completely traditional preferences. Vintage spec inspired takes of the most iconic instruments from Gibson's long historic legacy. The modern collection is exactly what it sounds like. Gibsons with some modern tweaks that make them more up to date for modern musicians. There's also the custom collection, but since the custom shop kind of operates as its own thing, I'm not really going to talk about it that much. I like how the SG, Explorer, Firebird, and Flying V models with like Les Paul custom stylings are now standard offerings instead of limited runs. The Les Paul special double cut with the figured tops and aged hardware is one of my favorites from any brand that I saw at the NAMM show. And now there's a Les Paul custom with a Floyd. What? My favorite though has to be that 1968 Les Paul custom reissue. I mean, if you guys are feeling nice / taking pity on me, I just looked in the mirror and a new 68 reissue might cheer me up, if you know what I'm saying. While no doubt they're probably amazing guitars, the cheapest instrument in the custom collection will run you $3,800, so let's get back to the guitars that I might actually be able to afford. Now at a high level, quite a few models across both collections look pretty similar to the 2019 model year versions, but I can see two important changes that make these new ones better, at least for me. Firstly, all the guitars across both collections now have Graphtec Tusk nuts. I didn't find the Tectoid nuts on the last models that bad, but Graphtec is just my preferred nut provider. They self-lubricate, and I've never had any problems when it comes to tuning stability with them, and arguably more important, I mean I've said it before, check out my self-lubricating nut is just fun to say. Secondly, Gibson has thankfully done away with the low frets. Now all the models come with medium jumbos. So, that context applied, let's start with the Les Paul, because it is, in my humble opinion, the most gorgeous guitar shape that has ever been or ever will be, and also it's the first model at the top of the page. The original collection has 5 Les Paul models, so no more of this, well, the 2016 has a chunky 50s neck shape, and the 2017 has a slimmer 60s neck shape, or whatever it was. Now we've got both a Les Paul standard 50s and a Les Paul standard 60s, so whichever your preferred flavor, it's always available. These are great because they're exactly what you think of when you picture a Gibson Les Paul standard. Non-weight relieved mahogany body, maple cap, mahogany neck, rosewood fingerboard with 22 frets. There are a few differences between them. The 50 standard has a chunky vintage 50s neck, vintage deluxe tuners with keystone buttons, and amber top hat control knobs. The 60s has a slim taper neck, Grover tuners, and gold top hats with silver reflectors for the control knobs. Then for pickups, the 50s has a burst bucker 1 in the neck and a burst bucker 2 in the bridge, whereas the 60s has a burst bucker 61R in the neck and a burst bucker 61T in the bridge. Personally, and I know a lot of people like them for classic rock type stuff, burst buckers are based off of the classic PAFs, but are a little thin sounding for my taste. The 50s comes in gold top, heritage cherry sunburst, and tobacco burst, and then the 60s comes in iced tea, bourbon burst, and unburst. The 60s and bourbon burst is totally the guitar for me. It looks so good. And it isn't just the stock photos. There was a 60s on the wall at Sam Ash the last time I was there. I don't know whether it was bourbon burst or iced tea, but it was so nice. There's also a 50s gold top P90, and I mean, they couldn't have chosen a better finish for a P90 standard. What's awesome is that while the 2019 standard was almost $3,000, over $3,000, I can't remember. The new standards without any bells or whistles, just straight up American Les Pauls are $2,500. Still relatively expensive because of the name, the quality, and where it's made, but now they're attainable. The price isn't unreasonable like it was last year in my opinion. That's really cool. Onto the flat top Les Pauls, we've got the Special and the Junior. The Special has a mahogany body, a vintage 50s mahogany neck, and a 22 fret rosewood fingerboard. It sports 2 P90 soap bars and comes in only gloss TB yellow. The Les Paul Junior has the exact same specs minus the neck binding, but with only one dog-ear P90 in the bridge and comes in vintage tobacco burst. I am so sad that the Junior is $14.99. I'm pretty sure that this is because of the gloss nitro finish, which takes a long time to apply. I would have loved for it to be in satin nitro because personally I love satin finishes, and also it could come in at the same $8.99 price point as the Junior Tribute DC because the satin finish takes less time to apply. Super sad. I'm still gonna try to get one on the channel because I love how simple it is, but yeah, it's a little more expensive than I can justify for adding it to my own stable of guitars with how many I already have. Moving over to the modern collection, we've got 6 Les Pauls, although 2 of them are double cuts, so they kinda count. The flagship of the entire line is the $2,800 Les Paul Modern, which seems to be like a continuation in the same vein as the 2019 Les Paul Standard. We've got a mahogany body with ultra-modern weight relief and a maple top, an asymmetrical slim taper mahogany neck with a modern contoured heel, and an ebony fingerboard with a compound fingerboard radius. As a massive Les Paul fan, those specs are so cool to see on a Gibson. Plus, their Grover locking tuners and the trapezoid fingerboard inlays are actually mother of pearl, as opposed to the acrylic used in basically every other model. Pickups are Burstbucker Pros, meh, although it does have the 4-push pull pot wiring system for a stupid amount of tones. The top comes in graphite, sparkling burgundy, and faded pelham blue. Personally, I think the finishes are okay. Faded pelham blue does look really good with the white speed knobs and natural back, but I kind of expected to see more exciting finishes for the flagship model. Either way, I love the direction they're going with the build specs, so that should be a fun one. Next in the lineup, at almost $1,000 less, is the Les Paul Classic. Mahogany body, mahogany slim taper neck, and a rosewood fingerboard. It's got 61 R&T pickups, and it basically seems like the 60 standard, but with a regular maple cap instead of flamed, 9-hole weight relief, and the 4-push pull pot system. The Classic comes in ebony, translucent cherry, heritage cherry sunburst, and honeyburst. It's kind of a funny one because it's a Les Paul Classic in the modern collection, but you know, that's basically what it is. A classic Les Paul with some cool modern modifications. The Les Paul Studio then is basically the same as the 2019 version. Mahogany body with ultra-modern weight relief, maple top, mahogany body, rosewood fingerboard, 490R neck, and 498T bridge pickups, and comes in 4 different finishes: wine red, tangerine burst, ebony, and smokehouse burst from the 2018 version. The Studio is now $200 less than it was before, which is great. Last year's pricing of $1,700 for me put it out of line with what I've always considered the Les Paul Studio to be. The full experience of an American-made Gibson Les Paul, but stripped of any unnecessary features or aesthetic flair, and with a price to match, and $1,700 didn't really match that spirit for me. $14.99 is much more reasonable for a Gibson Les Paul with the gloss nitro finish. Then the Les Paul Tribute. They've brought back the trapezoid inlays. Thank you, Gibson. The dots looked so bad on the 2019 version. The 490T and R pickups are back, which is cool. Standard mahogany body with ultra-modern weight relief and a maple cap, but then this is the only proper Les Paul in the collection with a maple neck and rounded profile. Kinda disappointing, it's still $11.99. I was kinda hoping for a sub $1,000 carved top Les Paul, but I don't know the cost of production and overhead, it might not be possible anymore. The $8.99 Les Paul Junior Tribute DC is back. Gibson hasn't changed anything except that now all 4 finishes, worn cherry, worn brown, worn ebony, and worn blue, are all available as standard offerings instead of just from select retailers. This was one of the most popular models from the 2019 lineup, and while past Gibson might have tried to fix what wasn't broken, the new leadership have not only left this one alone, they've also added a 2 pickup version, the Les Paul Special Tribute DC. Spec-wise, it's identical except for the second P90 in the neck position for $100 more. A lot of people were asking Gibson to do this, and they actually listened. Very cool. So that's everything on the Les Paul front. Let's talk SG. From the original collection, we've got 5 models. 3 of them are variations on the SG Standard 61. Mahogany body, mahogany slim taper neck, rosewood fingerboard, Burstbucker 61 R&T pickups. It only comes in a single color, the color that all SG should come in anyways, vintage cherry. The standard 61 comes in at $17.99, and if you want either a sideways or a Maestro Vibrola, it'll cost you $200 more. And they both only come in that same vintage cherry color. The sideways Vibrola is such a weird looking thing. I wonder why that didn't catch on. Then, just like the Les Paul, we have special and junior versions with mahogany bodies, mahogany necks, and P90s. The SG Junior again only comes in vintage cherry, and the SG Special comes in vintage sparkling burgundy and Pelham blue. Now, while I love the flat top Les Pauls, for some reason, the SGs look pretty ugly to me, but that's just my opinion. Over in the modern collection, there are another 3 SGs, this time with Batwing pickguards. The SG Tribute is straight up the SG Standard Tribute 2019 from last year. Obviously, it has this year's medium jumbo frets and Graphtec nut, but I don't even think they changed the stock photos. Everything else is the same. Satin nitro finish, mahogany body, rounded maple neck, and rosewood fingerboard. Uncovered 490R and 490T pickups. It comes in vintage cherry satin and natural walnut. The SG Standard has the same mahogany body and rosewood fingerboard. This one has covered 490R and 490T pickups and comes in heritage cherry and ebony. Basically the same guitar as the SG Standard 2019, $14.99 price tag and everything, but with a rounded mahogany neck instead of a slim taper. The big standout of the 3 is the SG Modern. Even from a glance, it looks super cool. Mahogany body, asymmetrical slim taper mahogany neck, and a AA flame maple top. Just like the Les Paul Modern, it's got an ebony fingerboard with a compound radius and real mother of pearl inlays. It also has the Burstbucker Pro Rhythm and Burstbucker Pro Plus lead pickups with 4 push-pull pots and comes in 2 finishes, trans black fade and the stunning blueberry fade. It's like they took only the things people liked from the 2019 high performance and put it into this guitar. I approve. By the way, Gibson, if you're watching, when you select the Blueberry Fade SG Modern, the currency symbol changes to pounds, so there you go, some free site QA feedback. On to the less popular but still iconic Gibson shapes, we've got 1 Firebird, 1 Flying V, and 1 Explorer in the original collection, none of which Gibson has really seen to change much from the previous lineup. The Firebird is Gibson's only neck-through design. It has a mahogany body, a 9-piece mahogany walnut slim taper neck, and a rosewood fingerboard. It has 2 mini humbuckers and comes in your choice of either Tobacco Burst or Cherry. Then the Explorer and Flying V both have mahogany bodies, slim taper mahogany necks, and rosewood fingerboards, Burstbucker 2 and 3 pickups, natural finishes, and yeah, the only thing they've really done is change the truss rod cover on the Flying V. Over on the modern collection, the Flying V B2 and Explorer B2 are back, essentially unchanged as well. Mahogany bodies, mahogany slim taper necks, rosewood fingerboards, satin ebony finishes, and uncovered Dirty Fingers Plus humbuckers. I'd kinda hoped they'd find a way to lower the price on these, but on the plus side, this gives me the opportunity of another year to finally get one of these on the channel. Okay, since I'm not filming myself today because my face is f***ed up, I can't not so subtly hide a guitar in the background as like a teaser of upcoming content like I usually do, so I'll just tell you. I've actually managed to snag one of the new Les Paul Tribute DCs, so there'll be a video of that soon, and it's the blue one, so hell yeah. I do wonder the frets aren't listed as cryogenically treated anymore, so I'm curious if that's something they got rid of in order to drop the price on like the studio. If that's true, I'm torn on this call. Let me know what you think in the comments, because while I think the cryogenic treatment adds a lot of value in that I love the idea of the frets being perfect essentially forever, I know not everyone saw it that way. A lot of people would rather have a less pricey Les Paul up front. More affordable Gibsons is something that people have been begging for, and so I'd love to know what you think about this way of accomplishing it. I've asked Algin over at Epiphone. He actually called me when he heard about my accident to make sure I was okay, which was super nice, so shout out to him and all the hard work he's putting in over at Epi and Kramer. Actually, Algin's just gotten back to me and my suspicion was correct. The frets are no longer cryogenically treated on Gibson USA models. They're 18% nickel silver. I don't know exactly what that means, but Algin tells me that it's a blended metal alloy commonly used in modern frets. Apparently this was a decision that was made completely based off of customer feedback. The majority of Gibson fans wanted it done the traditional way or didn't find any value in the cryogenic treatment. So I get why it was done. Personally, I'm a little disappointed. I thought it was a very cool feature, but I guess I was in the minority, and a lot of the models didn't even go down in price, so I don't know, let me know what you think. As a Gibson fan, I'm super excited to see how these new collections are received by the community. I think it's super smart to split things up into the original and modern categories. You got all the classic options for the people that complained about the dip switches and the 2019 Les Paul Standard or whatever. All the original collection guitars come with harnesses instead of PCBs. And then you've got contemporary options that Gibson is free to experiment with and try to excite people like me that don't have that nostalgia factor when thinking about 50s or 60s Les Pauls. You can see it's a move towards exactly what the CEO said he was going to do. He's pleasing the existing fans, winning back fans that they've lost over the years, and to a lesser extent, there's also a focus on targeting newer fans. What I mean by that is, while in my opinion they've nailed the original collection, I'm not sure that this lineup does enough to win over younger players or people who aren't already Gibson fans, even with the modern collection. Yes, you've got the SG and Les Paul moderns, both with an impressive amount of contemporary features, but they're $2,000 and $2,800 respectively. Anything around the $1,000 price range still has very classic specs. I think something like a Les Paul Modern Tribute with compound fingerboard radius and asymmetric profile would have been a really interesting addition to the lineup. You know, just like one experimental model to attract a different demographic of players that might otherwise not even look at Gibson. In the same vein, later down the line, I'd also love to see an expansion of the Tribute series because I love those stripped down satin finish models. We've got the Les Paul and the SG, and last year we got the Firebird, which has now been dropped. I wonder if it just didn't do well or whether they wanted to limit the number of models for the relaunch, but at least for me, apart from the Les Paul Custom, the Les Paul Tribute is actually my favorite Gibson model. I'd love to see other shapes in the lineup get the same treatment. It just lowers the barrier to entry, and I think if done properly, it's a great way to bring new players into the Gibson brand or introduce existing Gibson players to new shapes. Also, $8.99 and $9.99 Satin Nitro Les Paul Jr. and Special tributes, please. The double cuts are cool, but single cuts though, they're just better. Gibson, you better be working on that. I'm also curious to see how Gibson rolls out new models going forward. We know there isn't going to be whole lineup refreshes every year like there was in the past, so when are we going to see new models added or removed? Every quarter, every holiday season, winter and summer NAMM to make it a big event? Like, as a Gibson fan, just let me know when I'm supposed to start getting hyped. So honestly, I'd love to make a video on everything, all the new Gibsons. And the Les Pauls are my priority. He says surprising absolutely no one. But what do you guys want to see? The standards I saw at Sam Ash were gorgeous, the 60s in particular. I know there's some diehard Explorer fans out there, and the new SG Modern looks stupid cool as well. Let me know in the comments and in the poll. Before we get into the next question, I want to give a shout out to John Margiotti and the rest of the awesome patrons for making this content possible. If you like what I do and want to support me and get bonus perks as well, the link is in the description. Especially right now, I really appreciate it. I'd also like to give a shout out to Shagrath for pledging, downloading a tab, then deleting his pledge a day later so he wouldn't have to pay anything. Real cool, man. Real fucking cool. What is the basic cost of upkeeping the channel? The cost is my sanity. It's a lot of hours. Like, each demo video is about 25 to 30 hours of work, and ironically, the vast majority isn't even playing the guitar, which is partially why I still suck. And okay, I think that's it for this episode of Askgufish. I'm only doing 2 questions this week because the first one's really long and my face hurts. I also have a bit of a lisp because of those missing teeth and it's hard to talk. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit the like button. That actually helps a lot. Leave your thoughts and questions down below. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. Social media and merch links are down below. As always, thanks so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I will see you for the next video. Maybe you'll see me this time. I don't know. Okay, bye.